Alright folks, it's turn 37, and this was actually an extremely interesting turn. First of all, Fomoria sent me a snarky message about all the Vengeance of the Dead that I'm throwing. That's okay. I'm just shooting it because, might as well. I have the gems to spare. I cast Teleport with Yodog and Truth coming out of her wells, as well as Hulber, but you may notice there were actually 2 battles in Zox, and that's because Fomoria did something extremely clever. Because, okay, so if you'll recall, this province, Zox here, was between where his army was and where Fomoria is. So he has to move through this province in order to get to Fomoria. So my goal here was to teleport Truth coming out of her well and Yodog into this province to spam water elementals and take the province so that my forces could then move down here and catch his army halfway through without having spent any gems so that I could, kill them by spending all my gems. However, he had moved 6 Nemedian sorceresses ahead of the rest of his army. So he's got 6 Nemedian sorceresses and a Furbolg champion. Well, I think that's actually his province defense, but he's got 6 Nemedian sorceresses in this province. And so, my Mind Lords deal with the province defense okay. Yodog does take quite a bit of damage, but the water elementals, well, the water elementals fight them off okay. However, they are then inundated by Skelespam from these 6 Nemedian sorceresses, who of course are fantastic Skelespammers because they are spell singers and they're death 3. Most of them. Some of them are only death 2. One of them is actually diseased and dying. But in any case, they can Skelespam much longer than you'd anticipate because they have the because of their spell singing. So with their skeletons, they wipe out my Mind Lords. They kill both of them, which is a painful loss for me. Not unendurable, but painful. So then we move down into Zox with the rest of the army, and the rest of the army hits the Nemedian sorceresses. Just the Nemedian sorceresses, not the Fomorian army, and they use their gems here. And they throw some Shadow Blasts. I actually lose quite a few mages because some of my communion slaves get killed there, I think, and then I end up my communion ends up lopsided, and so my communion slaves go up to pretty high fatigue. So if you look at my communion masters, I have 9 slaves boosting me to 3, so I end up taking some pretty significant casualties. I lose 11 of these mages all told, it says. Yeah, because we're up to 173 fatigue there. And yeah, it looks like I get a tick of poison damage that comes through somewhere, and a bunch of my slave mages take damage from the communion spamming spells. So overall, I lose 11 slave mages to these 6 Nemedian sorceresses. Now, that is not a great battle. I mean, 6 Nemedian sorceresses, yeah, that's good. That's well over 1,200 gold. They're capital only, so that's cap only turns they're losing, but 11 slave mages. Slave mages aren't all that much less expensive than Nemedians. They're about 70 gold less expensive. So losing 11 versus 6 is not a fantastic trade. Since they are capital only, I would say it's okay. It's not great. But considering that these 6 Nemedian sorceresses already also killed 2 Mind Lords, who are much more expensive than them and capital only and slow to recruit, these 6 ladies definitely paid their dues. They did very, very well. On top of that, the army, because of the timing of all of this, the army actually got past me. And so the entire Fomorian army hit Fomoria, and my Androdai retreated into the Hungry Sea, which is good. But he, yeah, so... And this is because of just kind of the vagaries of, the vagaries of timing. It doesn't look like I made them cast any, it doesn't look like I made them use up any gems or anything. Tuxa the Androdai managed to just barely get out ahead of the angry horde of Nemedian warriors. That's sort of hilarious. So, he didn't take any casualties in this army, which has the 3 Fomorian kings, 1 Nemedian sorceress, 12 horticulturists. This is everything that's left in his empire pulled together. But yeah, interesting, painful also. The reason this worked out this way is because the teleport happened in the magic phase, and then movement happens simultaneously, right? But so, even though moving from this province requires going through this province, the game doesn't see it that way. The game just sees, oh, you have enough movement points to get from here to here, which, I didn't think they actually had enough movement points to do that. Because that's 23 movement points, and that army if we look at my messages, the army in Fomoria, the Fomorian kings even only have 18. Now, they do have cold resistance, so they don't take the snow penalty, which I guess might account for some of it, but even so, I would think moving out of a mountain and then into a forest would take more than that. So I'm not sure how that math worked out. Because the Fomorian giants and the Fomorian kings, I don't know. And then Nemedian warriors only have map move 12. So I'm really not sure exactly how the math worked out, but however the math worked out, he managed to do it, obviously. So when you move from this province to this province, the game just sees it as that, just sees it as a direct movement between the provinces, irregardless of what you're moving through. So since we were moving to different provinces and all movement happens simultaneously, we just dodged each other, because he went that way, I went this way, even though logically he would have to go through this province, or possibly this province if his troops are amphibious. It doesn't count that way. It just teleports you essentially directly to the destination province if you can make it. So we dodged each other like ships in the night, and his forces got back into Fomoria, which is a bummer. It really, really is. Now, of course, he doesn't have any income except the income from Fomoria itself, and his army, I think, is going to be eating that up entirely, because his upkeep cost on his Fomorian kings is, I'd have to do the division, which I haven't bothered to do yet. 12 is like 15 gold a year, so he's paying like 45 on them. His horticulturists are what? His horticulturists are only 44 gold a year, so like 3 or 4 each. So he's paying another 40 on them. His Furbolg druids overall, and then all of his troops, his Nemedian warriors, cost a couple gold each, so he's paying over 100 on them. So I don't think he has the cash to actually recruit anything in Fomoria. I don't think there's really much problem letting him have Fomoria, especially because he can't actually draw any income from Stone Heavens. But even so, it's a little bit irritating that that's happened. And I've now blown pretty much all of my gems, and I've killed off a bunch of my mages, and I have not successfully defeated half of his army in the way I was planning. So, very, very good job on Fomoria's part. I mean, I have to picture that he was planning that. Like, that has to be something that he was trying to do. Those Nemedian sorceresses were moving independently of the rest of the army. They were not stealthy, so they were, you know, kind of guarding against that. Meantime, Therodos is rolling in, and Therodos is taking advantage of both Therodos and Caelum, actually, are taking advantage of my attack on Fomoria in order to snipe out territories and eat what they can of Fomoria. So I find myself now in a very awkward position, because I've spent a whole lot of gems, I've lost a whole lot of mages, I have not taken the ultimate objective, and the secondary objectives are being eaten by other players very, very rapidly, and I can't really afford to split my forces to try and take him out. So I've got 75 infantry there, I've got another 50 there, I've got another almost 50, I've got another about 50 here. So I've got a couple hundred units. Like, unit-wise, I can face his army. In terms of mage power, he has me somewhat outpowered, at least in terms of numbers, but not in terms of, like, actual, you know, power. It looks like they're going to stand behind troops. His Woodhenge Druid has some nature gems. Where are his horticulturists? There they are. His horticulturists actually don't have nature gems. Interesting. He may be carrying pretty much every gem he has. He's got a whole bunch of water gems on that druid, though. A whole bunch of air gems on his Fomorian king. And obviously he can reload with all the gems that he has, you know, in his stores. So he's got quite a bit of magic power here. He's got quite a bit. He can spam a lot of swarm. He can spam a lot of air elementals, all that kind of good stuff. So fighting that army will cost me very significant casualties, and more importantly, I just need a whole bunch more mages before I can do it. Like, I need a lot of mages in order to take this on. And, of course, I also need my mages for research and everything, and I don't know, it's just kind of a bad situation. Overall, this has not gone the way I had hoped it would. So, we're pulling back, is what we're doing. We're falling back into the water. He can't effectively follow us there. If he tries to fight my army in the Hungry Sea, like, that's fine. His Fomorian kings can lead attacks underwater, unfortunately, but he can't take his Nemedian sorceresses, and he can't, like, a lot of air spells don't work underwater. For example, I think air elementals, yeah, air elementals don't work underwater. Lightning bolts do, but Thunderstrike doesn't. So his magic is very much crippled underwater. Unfortunately, I just don't have the oomph, kind of, to really fight him now. It really is a bummer. So we're going to have to pull my slave mages forward, my other slave mages forward. This army's going to have to retreat. This army is just going to have to fall back underwater, and we're just going to have to concentrate troops right there. We don't have another option. I will need to teleport this guy, who I have not renamed yet. Let me think of a terrible meme to rename this guy after. Let me see. Let's name him... Joseph Decrew. Ah, no, that didn't mean to. I wanted to delete the name. Come on now. I think that's how that's spelled. Nope, it has a U in it. God damn it. There we go. Joseph Decrew, the Mind Lord. Okay. I'm gonna give him all my water gems again. I'm spending water gems like water, doing this. I need to have him teleport. He needs to teleport over there, and we will script him to power the spheres and water elemental. Water elementals underwater will absolutely let me win this, but it's still kind of a pain in the ass. If he comes down after me, this army will beat him. This army will not, which is why that army is falling back. I could teleport Turkul over, or Muthalan, or Badger, but I don't want to. Yeah, that really is a bummer. That battle in Zox, man. Losing those 11 mages hurts me a lot. But that's how communions work. Either they work really well, or they don't work at all. And when they don't work at all, everybody dies. That's just kind of how the game is played. So, we'll try to hold him in the Hungry Sea. We'll fall back out of Lake Fortune temporarily. He can't possibly hold the water. So all we have to do at this point is take Fomoria before Therodos rolls in and takes it. Because, of course, Therodos is going to try to roll in and take it. Therodos is in a pretty significantly good position. Honestly, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 provinces right now. Has taken a bunch of forts, so province-wise, very comparable to me. Resource-wise, very comparable to me. Has a huge lump of ghosts. Yeah. Honestly, I'm not sure how I'm going to do this. But we'll find out. So, I may find myself in the traditional Relayan position where I just have to lurk underwater until the very late game, like doing research. I'm really hoping not. At least I have a land fort, from which I'm getting sages, and from which I can get Androdai. So I have more access to land than a lot of Relay players do. But if I end up getting stuck underwater, like if Therodos takes Fomoria, I have to fight Therodos. Because at that point, I must have all of the water. I must have him pushed out. I must eliminate Therodos as fully as possible in order to ensure that nobody exists who has unfettered access to the water. Because at that point, I have to have all the water, just in order to stay remotely competitive. So, hopefully Therodos will recognize that, and won't go for Fomoria. But if he does go for Fomoria, then I'm just going to be like, okay, well, so we're ending the non-aggression pact. Like, we have to... At this point, the Underwater Bowl is mandatory and unstoppable. In terms of cash, I am still recruiting more Mind Lords, but if the Underwater Bowl becomes, as I said, inevitable, then the thing to do will be to switch to recruiting Aboleths, because Aboleths are slightly more powerful than Slave Mages. And they're amphibious, so they're like normally I would prefer Mind Lords because having fewer, more powerful I didn't mean amphibious, I meant aquatic, sorry. Because having fewer, more powerful aquatic mages is better, because it means fewer people to try and take above land. But Aboleths and Apodai are very good for fighting underwater. In particular, Apodai actually would be the thing to recruit against Therodos, because with research. I can spam Wither Bones with them to crush ghosts very, very effectively. And Foul Vapors, if we look at that spell, it's not alteration, it's enchantment. Foul Vapors does actually work underwater, hilariously enough. So that's definitely something I have to worry about. I'm trying to go down Evocation, but really what I have to do is I have to get Enchantment level 7. Because Enchantment level 7 is what gives me Serpent's Blessing. And that's a vital, vital anti-Foul Vapors spell for fighting Therodos. Because Therodos, of course, can summon, at very high levels of research, Therodos can summon Telkines, which auto-cast Foul Vapors, and they also have a Pretender God chassis, the Telkine God King, which I know he didn't take, but Foul Vapors is kind of a Therodosian specialty in some ways. In terms of research, like, Therodos' research is skyrocketing. I am not competitive with that research right now, and that's a huge problem. So, yeah. If I do have to go to war with Therodos at this point, it'll be nasty. Because I don't have the resources that I planned to have at this point, because I have not, or rather, I don't have the obvious game plan towards getting those resources. Because like what I was planning, obviously, is we'd be in a similar situation here, except half of Fomoria's army and their most powerful mages would all be dead. In which case, this would be fine. In which case, then I would say, okay, I lost 11 mages, but all he's got here is a big pile of Firbolg warriors. His Fomorian kings are dead. His Nemedian sorceresses are all dead. Even so, I've struck a significant blow against him. It's just not enough for me to actually go in, because if he just patrols with all these troops, he can stop my troops from ever accomplishing anything by just patrolling and killing them all, because they're all shitty siege chaff, whereas his troops are all, like, actual units. So, you know, you see where I'm coming from. It's gonna be a problem. I still have all my nature mages. But I'm definitely gonna need to break out some more hefty combat magic here. And my research is, you know, for turn 37, it's okay. It's not great because I keep sending so many mages into combat and they keep dying. That's really the big problem. The big problem here is all my mages keep dying. It's bad. I've dark knowledged most of the ocean now and gotten basically nothing from it, which is also a big problem, but we'll see what we can do. Drop a dark knowledge over there, why don't you? And I think that'll be the turn. So I'll see you all on turn 38. We'll see how we can get out of this situation. Obviously, I'm just going to gather up troops here. We're going to try and make a second try at Fomoria, but as I said, if I can't make another try at Fomoria, I'm going to have to fight Therodos. Another thing that I'm strongly contemplating is pushing in here into Valador and taking this fort, which Fomoria can't defend, and I don't think one Eagle King can stop me from taking. That would piss off Caelum a little bit, but I don't know. Caelum's doing really, really well. They have been unfortunately besieged by Indies there, but we'll just kind of have to see where it goes. So, thanks for watching. See y'all on turn 37. Okay, folks, it's turn 38. Funnily enough, so we've retreated into the water, right? Fomoria sent a small raiding party and hit this province, took it from our province defense. Their actual army all moved up here, I think gambling that my troops here were going to attack this province, which of course I did not do. And then they immediately got hit by a random event that took this province with a ton of human Huskarls. So they've lost that province again. This army is going to have to double back to take it from the independents. They've also sent out Knolker, their prophet, in order to raid this province away. Now, I've shifted strategies somewhat. I've been doing the Foul Vapors thing. I'm starting to run a little bit short on nature gems, and I don't really want to be that predictable. So what I'm doing instead is I've formed this army into a communion that throws out a few water elementals and then mostly spams Enslave Mind, using my Mind Lords as communion slaves with personal regeneration on. So with personal regeneration on, my Mind Lords will regenerate 8 hit points a round, which means that they can survive communioning even if they hit max, max fatigue for a long time. On top of that, of course, they have high-level Astral, so they only take half fatigue from Enslaved Mind in the first place. So Enslaved Mind costs 20 fatigue. We're getting Light of the Northern Star up, which boosts everyone's Astral, and then using 8 Communion Slaves to give a 3-point boost. All of my Slave Mages will be Astral 5, who are throwing Enslaved Mind. That'll cut it down to 10. And then my Communion Slaves will also be under Power of the Spheres, so that'll cut it down by half again, meaning that the Enslaved Mind in total is getting 10 fatigue distributed, halved. Everybody gets 1 fatigue every time Enslaved Mind is cast. So I can spam Enslaved Mind pretty hard. Now, after they go off script, my mages will default to spamming probably Paralyze or Soul Slay, which have lower path costs and so technically get a penetration bonus, which is okay, but the goal of this basically is, especially since the main army contains a large proportion of Long Dead and one of their main strategies is Skeleспam, if I can catch their mages relatively isolated, the Enslaved Mind spam hopefully will enable me to actually steal some of their mages during the battle itself and turn those mages against the enemy. I may also try to work in a Howl, although Howl is a very dangerous spell to cast in a Communion because it takes a lot of fatigue. Inflicts a lot of fatigue damage on the Communion and can definitely push you over the edge to where your slaves start dying. But in any case, this army is actually just going to sit here for a turn. Probably 2 turns, because we're gathering up more mages and Lobo Guard up here. So we've got, our 75 Lobo Guard there, or 75 Lobo Guard plus some other random troops. We've got 50 more Lobo Guard there. So a total siege strength of 76 here. We're going to gather all these troops up for another 200 siege strength in that army. And then this army's got about 200. And make another run at Fomoria, I think. Now, Knoker, I can't enslave because he's the Prophet, and so he's immune to Enslaved Mind effects. However, if he's alone, I could probably just punch him to death with Water Elementals. What I may do is move down into Valador and kick this Eagle King off Valador. Caelum is obviously besieging Valador with 1 Eagle King. And Caelum's doing pretty well. They have lost some of their land down here to Helheim, it looks like. But they are re-besieging Raphabolia, and they have not been seriously threatened, personally. Although they are somewhat intermixed with Therodos, who is doing quite well along the coast, has taken a variety of fortresses along the coast, has also found the Doom Cloud. That's an amazing sight. I wish I had these fucking provinces, man. Tell you what. In terms of score graphs, in terms of gem income, my gem income is actually very mediocre at this point, and Therodos' gem income is fortunately slightly below mine. Agartha's gem income is off the chain. It's literally twice mine, if not a little bit more. Right now, they are winning hard. My gem income's not terrible. I mean, it's not bad, even for this point of the game. But Agartha is just, whew! Agartha's taken a lot of Hinnom's territory, including the Throne of Bones, which they have not yet claimed. And so they've seized a lot of gem income, especially from, this province, which we saw already they already had. And then they've taken the Witch's Bog, the Stone Circle, Painted Cave, 2 Death Gems there. Their gem income is very, very high. And Agartha is doing extremely well for themselves. In fact, they're very dangerous. They're probably the most dangerous person in this game. More dangerous than Pangaea, which is not a phrase that I say all that often. So, at this point, the call I really have to make is, am I going to commit once again to trying to actually take Fomoria out of the game, or am I going to be satisfied with some kind of peripheral win and then shift to try and drive Therodos out of the water? I have reached Thaumaturgy 6, so I have Wither Bones. With Wither Bones in my possession, my Aboleths and Abodai, my Abodeths can random death, and of course my Abodai start with death. So my Abodai then become extremely powerful anti-ghost casters. As soon as I hit enchantment level 7, which will happen fairly shortly here, after Thaumaturgy level 7, as soon as I hit that, I would be able to completely counter the Foul Vapors, spam out Water Elementals with my mages, and also, without even having to communion, I could spam out a lot of Water Elementals. And also drop Wither Bones to wipe out his large stacks of ghosts. Most of his ghosts are up here in the Obsidian Waste. So he's not prepared for that fight, which I could, absolutely take. Now, supply usage might be a problem, but I do have some nature random slave mages that would help. And frankly, I don't care if my Lobo Guard are starving. Like, Lobo Guard starving does not stop me. I wouldn't actually want to use the Lobo Guard because their magic resistance is so low. I would actually be using, like, these guys, and then I'd cast anti-magic to buff their magic resistance. Or, no, actually, I would use the Tritons because their MR is already 12. So, the Tritons are highly, highly efficient against Therodian ghosts because MR 16 means they take half damage almost all the time. And I could also drop, actually, I think it's an enchantment. Or is it thaumaturgy? Whereas, if I went up to alteration level 6, I could also drop Skeletal Legion. It can disease my own troops, but it makes them pierce resistant, which makes them resistant to almost all of Therodos' weapons, because Peltasts, Hoplites, and their archers, their spectral archers, who can actually fire underwater, I've learned. I didn't think they could, but they can, in fact, apparently. But all of them are piercing weapons. So if you have Skeletal Legion active and anti-magic, so your MR is really high, then your troops are taking a quarter damage from Therodos' hits, and they just barely matter. So yeah, I could absolutely fight Therodos. But I don't want to give up on Fomoria. Fomoria is recruiting more Fomorian giants, so it seems like he's contemplating another Counter-Strike, which to me would seem to be very poor strategy. But I mean, like, in his position, I would at this point be negotiating with me in order to try and combine against Therodos. Like, that would be... But, of course, he may have just resigned himself that he's not going to place in this game effectively. And so now he's just trying to hurt me because I'm the one who took him out. Which is, once again, you know, perfectly reasonable. Like, I get it. I've done things like that before. Zothaquoth is here because I want to build a temple, but I spent all my money again. Spend my money on women and wine, etc., etc., etc. That's a lie. Chanud is going to roll up over here into Endless Ocean. We're going to finish that Mind Lord, and then I think I probably am going to start recruiting some Abadai. If nothing else, I do need the Death Randoms. Still pumping out Sages to get that sweet, delicious research. My mages are... I think all of my forts are recruiting mages right now, which is good because I desperately need more mages. I'm also still recruiting some... Let's cancel those Lobo Guard real quick. If this offensive can't take Fomoria, then we'll see. I don't know. Fomoria's done a pretty decent job defending themselves, and I just ran out of oomph. I just ran out of moxie. I mean, I had one good battle killing off 6 of their Nemedian sorceresses, but it wasn't quite good enough. Now, with his 400 in income there, and about another 90 there, another 100 there, he can pay for his troops. I'm not convinced that he can recruit much of anything unless he's alchemizing, like, fire and earth gems. But he may be trading something away for the money. In any case, I think I'm mostly going to be lurking underwater for a little bit, but we're going to try to take Fomoria with the Enslave Mind spam, which I think we can do. If we drop our buffs and spam out Enslave Mind like 50 or 60 times, we'll get some good purchase. And hopefully that and our swarms of chaff will enable us to get through. The goal, of course, is to disrupt his skeleспam before he spams too many skeletons on us. Now, ironically, this will actually be a much harder strategy to pull off on a siege, because if we siege him, then his wall defenders are also valid targets for Enslave Mind. And your mages love enslaving wall defenders because they're close and they tend to be basic infantry units that have low magic resistance. So your mages just love enslaving them, and then they will stand on top of the wall like throwing fucking slingstones or whatever, and not really being relevant to the battle. What we want is to catch his army out somewhere where we can attack it and enslave Furbolg warriors, but more importantly, mages, horticulturists, Fomorian kings. Enslaving a couple of Fomorian kings would be a huge game changer. Because then we could, of course, take them underwater and cast Gift of Reason on them, and then we have our own light super combatant chassis, and we have big air magic, which would be very, very useful. Speaking of big air magic, we may... I don't want to bring Turkul. I don't want to bring Turkul because Turkul is holding up my global, and because Turkul is the only native air I've got. So I really don't want to use him if I can possibly avoid it. That said, bringing him into a communion could be very useful if I research some alteration, because he can give me Fog Warriors, and he can also give me Arrowfend at enchantment level 6, and Arrowfend is a super useful spell. So what I might do, actually, is I might... I don't want to cast Returning with him. I might, like, try to forge him a Ring of Returning if I research up to Construction 6, but that will just be a little bit of time because I'm working on researching other things. So, in the future, using Turkul to hop into an army with a Ring of Returning and just zap back anytime he takes damage could be very, very useful because, you know, as I said, Turkul is, well, very useful. But not right now. And for right now, we're also holding off on building any more Amulets of the Fish because I am short on Air Gems. So that's the situation right now. We're just kind of in a holding pattern at the moment, building up our forces to take another run at Fomoria. Hopefully this army will push out again, and we can get to a point where we can attack Fomoria successfully. But not super counting on it. We'll see. I'm anticipating that I'm going to have to fight this army, which is pretty substantial, and I'm also anticipating I'm going to have to fight all of his Fomorian kings at once. Gnokr will be the problem, since I can't enslave him. The others... If I chuck enough enslave downrange, it'll hit. I don't think he's got a whole lot of MR negates gear, MR resistance gear on his mages. And he'll be anticipating me using Foul Vapors again, which of course I do not plan to do. We're going to search for magic sites since we're sitting here. And we'll also have Rafflecopter search for magic sites to see if there's any, like, death. Ooh, Halls of the Drowned. Oh, that's right, we can summon long dead warriors. That's incredibly inefficient. Alright, in any case, thanks for watching. I'll see y'all in turn 39.